Hello, everyone. Welcome into the first ever episode of OTR on the Rim, presented by Heart of the Continent Hoops. You might be wondering, what is this show going to be about? Now, obviously, if you follow along on the Heart of the Continent Hoops website, doing lots of CEBL, a little bit of Sea Bears content right now, and that's what this show is going to really be about. It's just going to be your weekly episode of catching up with what's going on in the CEBL, and at the end, a little bit of stuff about the Sea Bears, just to, it's what we're doing on the site. That's just kind of what's going on. So that's really what the show's going to be about. So if you want to listen just to the first half, just to kind of keep up with what's going on in the league, then that's fantastic. If you just want to kind of do, the end portion to catch up with Sea Bears stuff, that's great. Even better, watch through the whole episode. That's even better. So without further ado, might as well get into the show. We'll start with probably what was the biggest news in the league, and it does have to do with the Sea Bears, so yes, I know. But just before recording, this what didn't happen just before recording. This was a couple days ago. Mason Boursier was released by the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Wasn't having that great of a season to start. His role kind of changed. And we'll talk about it later when we talk about the Sea Bears. So really just wasn't getting the role that he thought he was going to, so he decided before the season got too deep into it that he wanted to, change what was going on. So he wanted to change the scenery. So obviously right before before I started recording the episode, I'm glad I waited. It did turn out that he does sign with the Edmonton Stingers. I posted it on Twitter, at ElliotRusinH1. If you want to follow along there, I'm always posting stuff about the league, kind of the signings, what's going on, everything, keeping everybody in the loop. So I think it's a really good fit for Edmonton. Obviously, Boursier will bring, I would say, secondary ball handling responsibilities. He's going to bring you some shooting. He can get to the cup a little bit. He's got some decent playmaking. I think Jordan Baker is going to be a little bit better to use him instead of how Mike Taylor was hoping to use him with Winnipeg. So we'll see what happens there, but it's an interesting signing nonetheless. I think that it, fits with what Winnipeg's trying to do now. Not Winnipeg, but Edmonton. They're trying to play fast. They're trying to, do all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a good pickup for Edmonton. Obviously, Mike Taylor's pretty set on using Joffrey or Jeffrey James. It's one of those two. The product out of the University of Victoria. So we'll see if Boursier maybe, Winnipeg still has to play Edmonton a couple more times this year. So we'll see if he gets some run then. But Edmonton's pretty deep. They haven't been great. We're going to talk about one of their potential MVP candidates later on in the show. We'll get into that. But so that was the first bit of news. That was probably the biggest piece of news. Next, I guess I would say this one. The Niagara River Lions re-signed Khalil Ahmad. So he is back. I mean, he dropped 36 points in his return. What are you going to do? He's one of the best players in the league. He's former MVP. He's one of the best players that the league has seen. And he just makes the River Lions even better when their roster already looked really good. They were my pick to finish at the top of the Eastern Conference. There's not really much else to say on that. Once they get Javon Blair and everybody else back, I think that the River Lions are going to be serious once again. And they might have a challenger. It looks like they might. I wasn't too sure about this team. When I did the league preview, I was a little bit lower on them, but we'll see. Also, other news, one of the players that I was actually pretty excited to see last year, Jordan Bowden, joins the Rattlers this year. He played with the Montreal Alliance last year. Really good player. He can score it a little bit. He plays some defense. I think that makes Saskatchewan's floor significantly better. I'm curious to see. Saskatchewan's only won one game. I'm really curious to see if anything else really gets going for them. I'm a little apprehensive about the Rattlers. I just don't know if their roster is up to snuff like with everybody else. So we'll see. But I think Bowden does make them much better. I really liked what he did with the Alliance last year, and I think he's a pretty solid addition. One of the other bigger pieces of news from yesterday, speaking of the Alliance, the Montreal Alliance had signed Tavian Dunn-Martin. Now, I wasn't too familiar with him, but he's a bucket getter. He's a smaller guard. He can score it. He can shoot it. He's played over in France
for Cholet. He played in I believe it's the BXNT league. I believe it's, and I don't think it's BNXT. It's one of those two. It's the Belgian league. Obviously Cholet plays in France, and he's been a really good scorer over in Europe, after his time at Florida Gulf Coast, down in the States. So I think that makes Montreal, who I was already pretty high on, I think that makes them even better. I wonder where he slots in their lineup. Obviously, they released Tavis Pistol-Smith to make that roster spot. And obviously, I've been a big fan of Alain Louis, who is actually coming off the bench this year for Montreal. So I'm really curious to see where he fits into that. But it should be interesting. That was another piece of news that I thought should be mentioned. Yeah, so moving on as well. It didn't last too long. We thought maybe they would get to 6, but just to shout out the Vancouver Bandits, they were only the second team in league history to go 5-0 to start a season. Obviously, we'll get into it a little bit later, and we'll show some clips of it as well. The two best teams in the West, and I would actually argue the two best teams in the league, faced off a couple nights ago in Vancouver. The Calgary Surge came into the town, but Vancouver, their first 3-4 games, or I would even say the fourth game against Winnipeg, was just so dominant. They put up 100 points in their first 4 games. They were rolling. They were unbelievable, just getting scoring from all angles, from all levels. Yeah, the Bandits have been just so good. Mitch Creek's been fantastic. Kyle Mangus, I thought he would be a really good player. I was not expecting him to be that. I knew he was a good shooter, but I was not expecting him to be this good. Tyrese Samuel, we'll talk about them later when we talk about the MVP candidates, but they're just so good, are the Bandits. I was very surprised, and I knew Calgary was good, but I couldn't believe that Calgary ended up taking them down. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, speaking of now the Surge, shout out Ruggsy Miller-Moore, eclipsed 1,000 points in the CEBL. I believe he was the 5th player ever to eclipse 1,000 career points, and I believe that is playoffs and regular season. So congrats to him. He's been on another level this year. I don't think we've seen him score at this level, and we thought that his role was going to continue to diminish as the league got better, and he's just been he's taken his play to another step, and he's just been so good. Really was not expecting that from him, but it's good to see. He's one of the guys. He stayed in the same franchise for essentially his entire CEBL career. He loves Calgary. It's just a perfect fit, and it's a good story for the league. So, I guess to kind of just talked about these two teams, but I kind of thought that the league would be a one-horse race for first place. First place in the league, first place in the Western Conference. But, you have the game on Sunday, June 1st. You start the second month of the season with the two best teams in the league going at it in Vancouver. Man. Again, speaking of Miller-Moore, Ruggsy put up 22 points in that one. You have 4 starters in double digits for the Surge. 2 guys in the 20s. You get 10 off the bench from Olamide Adelodan. You can't ask for anything more from the Surge. Obviously, Greg Brown was great again. Jameer Nelson's been up and down. I kind of thought that he would be a little bit better, but he's kind of ebbs and flows. Him and Greg Brown kind of take turns, and I think finally Kyrie Thomas too is finally coming around. I was waiting for him. He's probably the guy with some of the most NBA experience that's come through the league. But yeah, he's been so good, and I don't want to slight him either. For the Bandits, Mitch Creek still puts up 21 and 11, still a fantastic game. Kyle Mangus was a little cold. He wasn't as hot as he's been. He was on fire against Winnipeg. Tyrese Samuel did foul out, so I think that does hurt them, but they also got 17 off the bench from Curtis Hollis, right? So you still have 4 guys in double digits. You got someone who puts up 21, someone who puts up 17. Mangus still puts up 14. I think somebody who I've been a little bit disappointed by is Isaiah Brockington. He hasn't been as good as I thought he would be. He had 5 turnovers in this one. Samuel also had 5 turnovers. He did have a double-double. But I kind of thought Brockington would be better, and he just hasn't been. So, they're going dual guard with Nuga. Mike Nuga in the backcourt. Nuga took 18 shots. He didn't have as good of a game as he could have had since he's come over. I don't know. Shamar Givens wasn't as good as he's been in the last couple games. I think that's been kind of thrown off by the addition of Nuga, and Nuga now starting. Brockington doesn't play, only played 16 and a half minutes. So it's an interesting dynamic in Vancouver, but I think these two teams are going to keep going at it for the rest of the year. I'm really, really interested to see what their next matchup looks like, because it was a fantastic game, and then Calgary just steamrolled them at the end of the game, completely took over. There was no issues whatsoever in target time and in the fourth quarter. So again, really good game. You'll see some of the clips. There's a showdown on Sunday night, and the Surge came out, and now we've got a two horse race at the top of the Western Conference. Like, not what I was expecting after the way that the Surge kind of were up and down to start, how Vancouver started, right? So really, really curious to see how everything shakes out the rest of the year. Now, to move into the Eastern Conference, it's interesting that the Scarborough Shooting Stars are one of the latest starts out of all the teams, but they're undefeated. They're 3-0. They haven't, like, Donovan Williams has been fantastic. They really haven't struggled a ton. I don't think their schedule's been too difficult yet, right? Like, it is what it is. They're 3-0 to start the year. You can't really complain if you're the Shooting Stars, and the River Lions. You've played 2 more games. You're 3-2. You have the same number of wins, right? Like, I think if you're the River Lions, you might have to be a little scared. Like, Scarborough might be here, and they don't even have Cat Barber yet. Cat Barber hasn't even joined them, and it's just Donovan Williams cooking. Yeah, if you're the River Lions, I think you're a little worried, right? Like, you've got 2 losses. You haven't been as good in the last little bit. And so it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be easy. And it's going to make Scarborough's job a little bit easier if they can keep on the roll. Obviously, Winnipeg's going to be in Scarborough on Saturday. The 2 teams will play on Friday. We'll show the schedule for Friday. Every week we're going to talk about some of the key matchups. I picked every game for Friday because it's the first ever 5-game Friday. It's going to be a little crazy to try to keep up with everything, but it's every team in the league is, in action. So it should be really good. But yeah, if you're Niagara, I think you're a little worried now that the Shooting Stars might be off to a hot start. But again, it's a 24-game season. Things can change on a dime. It's not like this is everything set in stone. So, but Niagara's got to regain form. Hopefully that comes with Khalil Ahmad now joining. Hopefully Ahmed Hill kind of gets set in his new role, right? So should be interesting. But so speaking of, let's take a look at the standings, obviously. So as I mentioned, the Shooting Stars sitting 3-0. Like, you can't ask for a better start. Donovan Williams is looking like an MVP candidate. It's hard to deny that he's been really good. Obviously, Montreal, when this is being recorded, this is on the Tuesday, June 3rd. Though they're playing on the Wednesday morning school day game in Brampton. So that'll be their second game of the year because the Summer Classic counts as a no contest. Obviously, if you follow the league, you kind of understand what's going on there. That's why they've only played 1 game. Riverline sitting at 3-2. Again, they got to regain form here. We'll see if that happens. The Blackjacks got their second win of the season against the Sea Bears. And I think they're better than their record says. Like, I think they probably should be, 3-1, arguably. I mean, they technically be 2-3 right now with the no contest, but it is what it is. And then obviously Brampton's just been struggling. They're 0-5. Winnipeg rolls in there on Friday, and we'll talk about that very soon here. But it's going to be really interesting to see if they can find a way to bounce back. And again, now switching over to the Western Conference, I don't know who the best team is. Like, Vancouver's looked like the best team. Calgary looks like they're rounding into form. Like, I think it's going to be a 2-horse race, and everybody else is below 500. Edmonton's been a little disappointing. They like Winnipeg, have had a tough schedule to start. They played 6 games, already 2-4. Again, we'll talk about them in the MVP section here in a minute. But Sean East looks like one of the best guards in the league. Saskatchewan's, again, only got one win, but Jordan Bowden might be able to help them. And Winnipeg's sitting in last place. Now, they host championship weekend, and I think that's got a lot of eyes on Winnipeg. I think that's why the Boursier release was big. Also, when Mike Taylor comes out and whatever says he wants to keep the roster as same as he possibly can. Again, we'll get into that later. But yeah, the Sea Bears are right. Like it is what it is. I think one of those games, if you play it again, like maybe the Calgary game or even the Ottawa game, you win and you're sitting at 2-3 instead of 1-4, and I think you feel a little bit better. But I think Friday's game against Brampton, we'll get to it, I think is a little bit more winnable. But we'll get to that later when we talk about the Sea Bears. So I do want to talk about early season MVP candidates. We're I guess a fifth of the way into the season, if you want to say it. I know it's a 24-game season, and the fifth would be 25, but we're going to say it for most teams. You're about a fifth of the way into the year. And, like, I was not expecting someone like Sean East to explode onto the scene like he has. 24 points, 5.5 boards, 4.5 assists, 2 steals. He's basically shooting almost 50-50-90. Like, he is just unbelievable scoring the ball. Like, you'll see some of the clips, he can get it done off the dribble, he can catch and shoot. He's shown the playmaking side now. He's kind of been Edmonton's main scorer, but he does other things other than that, and I think I don't know where Edmonton would be without him. He has consistently been putting up 20 plus. I don't think he has a game less than, he might have one game less than 20 plus in the first 6 games. Like, he is really surprised me. I watched him a little bit at Missouri. I was not expecting him to be this good. So obviously I talked about him earlier. You could throw in 3 of the Bandits, but I'll throw up his highlights right now. Mitch Creek, 24 points, 5.5 boards, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, 63% from the field, and 42% from 3. You could throw in Kyle Mangus into that. He's averaging over 20 points. We've seen Tyrese Samuel put up 36 points. Like, Samuel's getting double-doubles all over the place. Like, Vancouver, similarly like Calgary, with Greg Brown, Jameer Nelson, and Ruggsy Miller-Moore, like, one of those 3 could win MVP. Obviously, I think Mitch Creek would. I think he does a little bit more than a Mangus, and I think he does as much as Samuel and has more responsibility scoring the ball. But yeah, it's night and day between some of these teams about what their level of talent is and how good some of these players are. One of my sleepers is Deng Adele. I think that he should be in the running for MVP. 22 points, 9 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. Like, we know he plays defense. He can score. Shooting 35% from 3, which is just average. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He's taken a lot of attempts this year. I was not expecting that. But still shooting 50% from the field, right? And 93% from the free throw line. Now, some of these guys have only played like 4 to 6 games, so we're still early. But I think Adele has taken another step this year, and I think he's one of the best players in the CEBL, and I don't think it's even close. He's probably one of, if not the best wing in the league, because I don't even know if you count Mitch Creek's not a wing, Mangus is a guard, maybe he's a wing, Samuel's a big, Shaunice is a guard, right? Another one of the guys I wanted to mention, Donovan Williams, one of my honorable mentions. He's a guard, kind of a wing. He's a bigger guard. He's been fantastic, as I mentioned, for Scarborough. But yeah, like, I think Adele is one of the better wings in the league, and I think he deserves some recognition. And I mentioned Calgary. Like, Calgary's got Greg Brown, Jameer Nelson, Ruggsy Miller-Moore. Those 3 kind of tag team for who's going to play, who kind of gets the bulk of the touches, whoever's hot, that's kind of who Calgary's going with. And I think for head coach Caleb Canales, I think it's just the smart thing to do. So, yeah. One of the other things I do want to touch on, and we're going to go on a quick tangent here. It has to do with the U Sports players. Now, obviously, the league goes through the U Sports draft. They have the connection with the U Sport with U Sports to make sure that the players can, play and not lose eligibility and yada yada yada. My biggest thing is there's really only 2 players this year that are really going to get a shot. Obviously, there's Joffrey James on the Sea Bears. He hasn't been great so far. Hopefully, maybe he turns around. He has experience in this league, like these other 2 guys I'm going to mention. But just with all the NCAA stuff, like U Sports, and this can be a topic for another conversation if you guys want to hear me yap about it. U Sports is starting to become like the JUCO or a Division 2, Division 3 to the NCAA. Obviously, it's just how things are going, right? It's the way of the NIL era, right? U Sports guys play here for a couple seasons, then they're done. Like, I think this would have been one of the better U Sports drafts. Like, you think that Nate Petrone joins. It doesn't sound like he's going anywhere yet. But you've got guys like Johan Sam. Obviously, if Simon Hildebrandt wasn't already in the States, there's even other guys like I from what I know over in Saskatchewan. Obviously, there's Declan Peterson. I believe his last name is Pearson. If I'm getting that incorrect, I'm sorry. But he was playing for the Rattlers, the big man for the Calgary Dinos. As far as I'm aware, he got released, and I believe it's because he's heading down to the States to play. And I believe as well Isaac Simon for the Rattlers, who I would have thrown into that list of guys that have a shot at winning U Sports Player of the Year, is also headed down to the States. And so that's just where we're at. And I think it's becoming an issue where there are guys coming into the league and they're not even really playing. They're getting drafted. The league's giving them a spotlight, but they're not even playing. Like Johan Sam, I believe, joined Brampton training camp and was released soon after because he'd already made his intentions clear that he was going to be playing in the States and he doesn't want to lose eligibility. So it's to a point where there's really only two guys in the running, right? Like Aaron Rooms, he had a 19-point performance for the Stingers. He's been a huge part of their rotation, and I think he's the front runner right now through the first couple of games. Then there's David Walker, who he's got one double-digit performance, and he's got a huge role with the Brampton Honey Badgers, especially with Brampton not being as good this season. So he's kind of their guy off the bench. So it is what it is. Or did I say Brampton Honey Badgers? I believe I for some reason get them in Scarborough because he's played for both. I believe, did I say Brampton? I said Brampton, and I believe I meant to say Scarborough because he has played for both. Sorry, so the Scarborough Shooting Stars. My mistake. Either way, he's getting minutes for Scarborough. He's gotten minutes for Brampton in the league. Like, it's just the way that the league functions. And so I get that they're wanting to promote U Sports players, but if all these guys are going to go to the States, then yeah, it is what it is. But I think I wanted to shout those guys out because they're guys that decide to stay, get pro experience, and get those opportunities. And I think that's kind of where you need to go. I think it needs to be more of an upperclassman draft. We can have this conversation another time. But I'm thinking either needs to be a draft of more upperclassmen guys that are going to stay, or guys that have already graduated, like a Jeffrey James, who they're starting their pro career and they need to take it like an actual draft where I get you have the connection with U Sports, but I think teams, if they actually want to use these players and get the incentives and all that sort of stuff, I think you need to start drafting guys who are graduating and roll with that. So, with that being said, we're about halfway through the episode. Let's transition into some Sea Bears stuff. That's basically it for what's been going on with the league. I guess quickly I'll throw up the graphic for the games this week. There's 5 on Friday. Everybody's in action. Scarborough Shooting Stars are on the road to take on the Niagara River Lions. As mentioned, the Sea Bears are on the road to take on the Brampton Honey Badgers. The Stingers will face the Alliance in Montreal. The Rattlers will head to Calgary for a Western Showdown, and the Blackjacks will take on the Vancouver Bandits. I believe that their super long 5-game road trip, ends there, if I'm not mistaken. So unless I think they maybe have one more game, because I think that might be game 4 of that 5-game road trip. So yeah, those are the 5 games on Friday. Catch them. There'll be ranging of times depending on where you are and that sort of thing, but should be really good basketball. The only other game, as I mentioned, this is going up hopefully at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. So at 10 o'clock, there's a school day game in Brampton. The Alliance will take on the Honey Badgers. And then everybody's in action on the Friday. That's why there's this whole break. So let's transition into Sea Bears stuff. 1-4. It's been a rough stretch on both ends of the floor for Winnipeg. I mean, I don't really even know what to say at this point. Calgary exposed their offense and their transition defense in both of those games. And then you look at, Vancouver and Ottawa just showed that their defense needed to get some work in. Like, the offense their offense was good, or wasn't as good. Their defense was good enough, especially against Ottawa. I think against Vancouver, their defense was certainly good enough to win that game. They needed to figure out offense, and I think that's. I'm going to show some clips here in a minute, and I think that's something that they need to work on. And they need bench scoring. Like, again, I'm going to use mostly Ottawa examples because it's the most recent game. It's the one that's in everybody's minds before Friday. You get 25 combined points from those not named Tevian Jones and Jalen Williams. Like, you're not going to win basketball games that way. You just can't. So it doesn't matter how many those two put up. You need some. You're not going to win many games when you're not getting enough production. So I think that's one of the things that Winnipeg needs to do. And I get, obviously, and I will give him some credit. Alex Campbell played really well in everything but scoring the basketball against the Blackjacks. But he's got to score. And I get they moved Emmanuel Acott to the bench. From what I understand, Acott got sent to the bench to kind of give the bench a spark, be scoring. But I think it's just kind of messed with everything. He was one of their best play. Like, him and Terry Roberts were two of the best players for the Sea Bears to begin the year. Or at least consistent, I guess I should say. And now you're getting Acott, who's not really getting any touches off the bench. I kind of thought if he's going to the bench, he's going to get most of the touches. They're going to run a bunch of stuff through him. And they just haven't. It's really just been about him coming in. He rebounds, he defends, and he's just not getting touches on offense. And I think that Winnipeg needs him to get touches, especially if they're going to put him off the bench, to get that bench scoring. So, again, Campbell played great defense. Not going to take that away from him. It's just been, he's like 3 of 20 shooting the 3 to start the year. He's shooting like less than 30%, I think, from the field. It's not pretty right now on offense for Winnipeg. They've had issues scoring in the paint. They don't get enough paint touches. We'll talk about that in one of the clips here in a second. They're getting outscored in the paint. Most games are getting out rebounded. They won the paint battle against Ottawa, but got out rebounded. And with the way that Mike Taylor wants to run this team, he needs to stress the fact that this team needs to be good on defense. Whether they want to run in transition or just be fully about executing on offense, defense they need to hang their hat on. It's how they're going to win games. And I think we've seen it a couple times, and I'll show it in one of the clips here. Defense needs to be the priority if they're wanting to win games. And I understand what Mike Taylor's trying to do. He's trying to make a switch. But if you're going to make the switch, then, I don't know, a team that I would say closely resembles them or what they're trying to do is the Edmonton Stingers. I wouldn't say obviously Calgary's had one of the best defenses, and I get that's what Winnipeg's trying to do. But I would argue that Edmonton is the mold that they're trying to build off of, right? They're trying to get that team scoring mentality, team defense, team, all of that stuff with execution. That's what Jordan Baker's done a really good job of in Edmonton. But the difference is Edmonton gets out in transition, and yes, they don't like to run like Calgary does, but they get out in transition, they take their opportunities, and Winnipeg has shown that they can do that. Mike Taylor signed a bunch of guys that their best thing that they can do is they're athletic, and they can run in transition and defense. Scoring an ISO ball was not what they were trying to do, and that's what it feels like he's trying to do with some of these sets, or guys are getting put into those positions. So if you want to score with a team mentality, you look at Edmonton where guys score 4 or 6 of their points just in transition, and then they get a couple of their execution buckets, and there's double digits, right? Like, it's right there. It's not difficult. So I think that's where Winnipeg needs to change. And so I'll show you the first clip here. This set is just, it's a late clock situation. You get the stop on the first possession, and you come down and you run a really slow set. And obviously I know they're trying to get the cross screen going. They're trying to get a touch. Mike Taylor seems to like to run Jalen Williams to get to his left-hand hook on possessions to start games and to start both halves. I'm not sure why Williams has scored on them, but they haven't been pretty looks. They've been tough shots. And on this possession, you see it turns into an Alex Campbell 3, and he has to chuck up a 3. Now, there's a scramble opportunity. He gets a chance for a layup, but it feels like guys have to play hero ball, and someone like Alex Campbell's not the guy you want hero balling, right? And then that gets him off his rhythm to start the game, and you're running a super long set when there's like 13 seconds on the shot clock when Campbell first catches it before the cross screen happens. By the time he gets it back, there's 5 on the shot clock. Like, you need something quicker in that situation to be run. I don't know if that's on Terry Roberts or if that's on Mike Taylor, but you got to get something different there. And I just don't think that that's like, it just isn't what they're trying to do. And I'm going to show the good clips here in a second here. Obviously, they have the possession where they get the ball movement around, right? You get Tevian Jones hitting the 3 at the top of the key. Yes, it's late clock again, but you at least get the ball movement. You got the paint touch before that, or at least the post touch to Kyler. And I think that will be a little bit different, especially on that cross screen to Williams. I think that becomes Simi Shitu, who's supposed to join them on Friday in Brampton. I believe he's practicing right now. He's going to play for them on Friday, as far as I'm aware, from what I understand. But like, you look at you look at the longer clip where the 2 possession span, they go down, ball moves around, Tevian Jones hits the 3, they come down, they get the stop, and then they run in transition. Like, that's what they need to be good at. They need to be good at getting stops, forcing turnovers, get out in transition when you get that stop. You don't have to be running all the time. You just have to be opportunistic with the way that you want to play. And so for Winnipeg to do that, if they can, then I think that's where they're going to be good. Right? And so I'll show the other clip. It'll play while as I'm talking about this. But like, you go up 9 in the second quarter against Ottawa, then you give up a 21-5 run to end the half. That is bad. And Winnipeg makes that lead to 9 because they're playing defense. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're doing what they're good at, and it just stops. Then guys start trying to hero ball when there's an open shot missed. Ottawa score on the other end. They came down. They tried to hero ball, and then it turns into like a 6-point swing, just like that, because Winnipeg's trying to hero ball, and you can't have that. You can't be having that if you're wanting to win games with the style of play that you want to play. And they've shown that they can do this, right? And so that's where it's frustrating, is they've shown that they can be good. But it's been in these short spurts. Like against Vancouver, it was in a really short spurt. Against Ottawa, it was a longer spurt, but it wasn't that 30 to 35 minute effort that you probably need to win most games. And so I don't know if this is a clash in styles between the player and the coach game plan, and guys are going away from it, and Mike Taylor's getting frustrated because they're going away from it, or if this is just Mike Taylor trying to switch stuff up. Like, I don't know. There's too many questions right now, and it might be something else. It's hard to tell. We'll see on Friday against Brampton, who is an inferior opponent. Like, you should win that game. And I said in my article on the Heart of the Continent Hoops that Sunday felt like must win. It wasn't must win, but it felt like it. And it felt like Winnipeg got up for it, and they were in the lead, and they held control, and then they just gave it away because they decided to. And so I think if they can play more consistently in terms of playing to their style of play, 1,000%, I think they win more games. Just for the simple fact that if they can stick to their game plan, which I don't know if it's, again, the players changing the game plan where they feel like they have to hero ball once they feeling to lose the momentum, or if it's just Mike Taylor making changes for no reason, which I felt like at times there's been times where lineups have been working, he makes a sub, and then things get kind of all jumbled up. So I don't know. Hopefully Friday is a game where they take out some aggression on Brampton, and hopefully Brampton is able to take the aggression, and hopefully Winnipeg just like goes in there and they play to their game plan and they do what they do best. And I think that this team needs to be a little bit more opportunistic in transition, because they're also not great on transition defense. And I think that's something that I'm going to hang on Mike Taylor's hat, because they just haven't been good at that in the 3 years that they've been around. Teams like Calgary and Edmonton have just killed them in that aspect. They haven't figured it out. So I think Winnipeg, to get some buckets back, have to do the same thing. They have to force turnovers and get out in transition. They forced a lot of turnovers in that first half, especially that first quarter against Ottawa and Vancouver, and it led to them playing better. So I think if they stick to that game plan, I think they win more games. Again, there's also another thing here where they played 4 games at home. They were 15-5 coming into the year. They're 1-3 now at home this season. It's not great, but hopefully you've already played 3 of your home games. You got to turn that around. That's been your biggest strength, right? And I think that there was some regression happening there, and I think there'll be some positive progression there, and I think they win a couple more games at home here after this first fifth of the season. But it was going to come at some point. They could be that good, like literally in a 20, like if they in 20 games, 1 in every 5 home games you're losing. Like that's a really good record. That's really good. It had to happen. So again, you're gonna play a winless Brampton team on Friday. You need to show that you're better than the last place team, and you get the back-to-back in Scarborough on Saturday. You got to win at least one of those games and come out back at home next Wednesday, which we'll have another episode out next Wednesday. You have to win at least one of those games. If you win both, I think you have the fans back on your side. But right now, it's turmoil right now in Winnipeg, and I think I don't blame the fans. It's not. This feels like deja vu for some people from last year. Once Teddy left, things were kind of roller coaster, people in and out. Obviously, you have Borsey already now in Edmonton. He's out of here, so you don't. Sea Bears fans don't have another home game until the 11th. You got to hope that this team is not like last year's team who could not win on the road. You have to take at least one. If you win both, you're now 3-4. You're feeling good coming home to play Montreal, which I would back them to win as well. I don't know. Maybe Scarborough. We'll see how Scarborough looks against Niagara on Friday, but you don't get another home game till next Wednesday. You have to win one of 2 this weekend. So, with that being said, I think that is it. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, because there is a video version. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And yeah, follow along on Heart of the Continent Hoops, hotchoops.wordpress.com, and follow along on my Twitter. You can get the link there as well for the website and for all of this stuff at Elliot Rusin H1 or Elliot_Russenholt on Instagram. Thank you everyone for listening. Please let me know what you thought of the episode. Anything else that I can clean up or talk about next time, and we will see you soon.